Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Ray Buffer. Ray states he has always been an actor. It's been a part of his life, his entire life. He went to school for musical theater. He's got an incredible, deep, baritone singing voice. You'll hear it. He, like I said, went to school for musical theater. He started his own theater company, and now he is pursuing a full-time career in acting. He's still singing and doing a lot of voiceover work. He's also my first self-identified character actor. He will not be the last. I've got a couple more coming up. He's got a very unique look, a big, awesome beard. So he gets to go in and play a lot of really cool characters, and we touch on that. He also plays Santa a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see why. Please enjoy the holly jolly Ray Buffer. Are you located?
Sure, I'm in Long Beach, California.
Oh, very nice. How's the weather? It looks sunny.
It is hot, extremely hot here. In fact, I just I went to Cabo for my birthday, which was just a few days ago, and we were there for a week. And we went there for the sun and you know, to sit out and just enjoy the weather. And we got back home, and it was hotter here. There was a heat wave here, so.
Oh my gosh.
Like we could have just stayed. We could have had a staycation and gotten even more sun, but yeah.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Congratulations on another trip around the sun.
Another trip, yes. I think I'm going to stop counting them pretty soon.
Oh, I think there was a point in time where I remember thinking nothing else exciting comes like milestone wise. I think once I passed 21, when I was like, I can legally vote, I can rent a car, like what else is there to celebrate? So sure. I just stopped counting.
I think it's hard too. I mean, it's like, you know, people say, what do you want for your birthday? And it's like, well, if there's really something I want that I know, you know, I something that I really want that I know is expensive, I'll just buy it myself, you know? It's like, if it's an inexpensive gift, I pretty much have everything that I need. You know, it's like you get to a point where it's like, you know, how many more ring lights can I ask for? Or, you know, it's like, or a book on this or a book on that. You know, it's like, at a certain point, you've accumulated enough stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's where I know there was that bit of a shift during the pandemic. I wonder if it'll still happen about, you know, thinking more about the experiences, the gifting of experiences as opposed to the gifting of more stuff. And then obviously in the pandemic there were no experiences to be had, but now maybe there are, which, yeah, I agree. Like, it's like how many more people buy me funky socks and books. I'm like, I appreciate it, but I don't need any more.
Yeah. I'll put that in the funky sock bin that's out on my porch, you know, it's like, you know.
Well, and I wear funky socks with my scrubs. So, like, again, everyone, like, it's like the thing that I do. So people now know that if they're stuck for a gift for me, they just buy me funky socks. I'm like, oh, sure. I like them. Right. Okay, but I don't need any more. But yeah, you're so right. You're so right. It just becomes more clutter.
Yeah, it really does. So. But experiences is interesting, but experiences aren't cheap either, so it's kind of a tricky thing unless someone's getting you like an escape room experience or something. There's not can't really ask for someone to get you a trip to Bermuda or France or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they ask you, what do you want for your birthday? You're like, trip to Bermuda?
Right.
They're like, how about a pair of funky socks?
Yeah. Or some Bermuda shorts. Here's some Bermuda
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, tell me your story. How did you get into acting?
Well, I may be a strange guest for you because I've always been an actor. The second act, the way the second act fits for me is I have gone in and out from acting, and I've gone back into the survival gig mode and worked for the man for a while, and then all of a sudden got a craving to be left brained again and be creative and do my own thing. What recently happened was I was directing and producing musical theater. I had formed my own company, gotten to a point where I was kind of entrepreneurial and was doing more of like a management and facilitating other people acting. And I'd been doing that up until just before the pandemic, and got that craving again to just focus on my own performance and take a step away from producing and directing and actually focus on me performing again and being an actor full time. And just before the pandemic, I started doing that again, and I've been doing it ever since. And I think I'm having more success now as an actor, being myself as an actor, than I did 20 years ago when I was giving it a go. Um, and the reasoning for that, I mean, we can get into that, but I think just being older, I think I fit better in my flesh right now than I did 20 years ago. But from the age of, I'd say, 12, 13 is when I started acting. And I did that in plays first, and then was introduced to musical theater, which became my love and was my passion throughout school and going to college. Um, and I got my degree in musical theater, and then I started working in regional theater, dinner theater, doing a lot of you know big box musicals. I also worked as a stage manager, so I saw different sides of the business even early on. But all that experience I kind of accumulated, and probably at around 2008, I was working for other companies doing marketing, other theater companies doing marketing, um, being a general manager for an opera company. And I just kind of realized, if I'm doing this for other people's dreams, why don't I just dream my own dream? So I formed a theater company in 2009 that ran until about 2012. Funding kind of dried up, and I needed to pay the bills a different way, so I went back into kind of retail type of careers for a couple of years. And then I moved to Long Beach, where I am now, and formed another company with a partner, which we kept going for a few years until the pandemic kind of stopped us. But um, I think being forced to stop producing from the pandemic is what reignited my idea of, I need to be an actor again, see what I can do. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, not at all. I think that happened to a lot of people in the pandemic, right? There was this, like, not just the great resignation that, CNN keeps talking about, but I think there was also a great kind of, I don't know, mindset discovery, trying to figure out what ignites your passion again, from, kind of a great reset button almost, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people felt that way. Hmm.
I think they
So
took
you were
inventory.
very creative. Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, I think, yeah, a lot of people took personal inventory on where they're spending
Mm.
their time, their life, the years they have. And and I think that's why so many people have quit, their jobs or refused to go back to the same jobs without negotiating, you know, new ways of working. I think it really has empowered the worker, the pandemic. And I'm curious to see how long that empowerment will last.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Open ended. I don't know where I'm leading with that, but I wonder when employers are going to start, requiring things of workers again that just kind of like restore back into default mode the way we were, or if things are going to be permanent. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I know in Canada we're definitely seeing a shift back into kind of the way it was, mainly because inflation has just skyrocketed. And I know this is like a negative Nancy thing to talk about, but like, you know, yeah, it's great to dream big and do the things that you've always found that give you inspiration and passion, but everything is just so damn expensive.
Yeah.
And people kind of have that realization of, yeah, I want to do my passion projects because we only have one life to live. But then also, the starving artist mentality isn't really, doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, I think we had maybe 2 years of like, in my experience, we had maybe about two, maybe 3 years where the wages were increasing,
Mm-hmm.
universally, and everybody had a little more money to spend, and things were kind of coasting along, and then boom, then that inflation hit, and so now it's like we were here. It's like two steps forward, three steps back. It's kind of we're in the step back mode right now. So hopefully, maybe we're nearing the precipice of that, and we'll start stepping forward again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Take me back to when you were a kid, because so many people I talk to on this podcast who had a career prior to acting were very similar to you, right? Had creativity and aspirations to act when they were young and were the theater kids in musical theater in high school. And then somebody or something came along and said, be rational. That is not a logical career choice, and kind of shut down that. And then we went the reasonable career path. Did that ever happen to you? Or did you always find you had some supportive either mentor or adult or someone saying, yeah, this is you, go for it?
Yeah, I think I think more that than the what you were saying prior. I think I had more people cheerleading me, telling me to go for it, telling me, oh, you could do this, you could do that, you could be this. So I had a lot of support. I think the rational voice came from myself. I think it was from necessity. You know, we were talking earlier about materialism and accumulating things from our birthdays. Well, I think that when you're younger, you're maybe more materialistic, and you're more about accumulation and status, and you want to drive a nice car, and so you accumulate debt. I think more assiduously. I mean, you take on a lot of responsibility. And so as I was doing that when I was younger, I realized, well, I got to pay for this. And being a starving artist doesn't always pay for that. So I think I would go as long as I could, trying to make money being an artist. And then when I realized, well, I'm going to get evicted soon, I would then go and find a job, and I think being a big guy, I'm 6'4". I was still 6'4" back then. Being a big guy, security kind of jobs came easy for me. So if I knew I had to go make a buck or something, I could pick up, that kind of work. And that's kind of like what was essentially my fallback for a while, at least in my 20s. And I think there's a desire to work full time, making money from the man, and then part time, you know, moving your acting or your singing or whatever your artistic career is forward. Um, but it's not that practical. I think you get more results when you go whole hog, when you move forward and invest your primary energy into something, because doing that full-time job somewhere else and then trying to do part-time another 20, 30 hours towards what you really enjoy, you don't necessarily have your primary energy to put towards that because you're spent. You put all your energy into your full-time job just trying to pay the rent. So that can work for a while, but I found that I was taking baby steps back then, and those baby steps weren't really creating enough momentum for my career back in that day. Um, Whereas now I've kind of turned the tables, and now my full time thing is acting, and if needed, I've got some part time little things I can do to fill the void when I have a day off or a weekend off, and I just want to bring in some more income. So I think that's a much healthier balance, at least for my heart and my mind and where I want to be. So as a child, I mean, first thing that came to me was music. I played violin. That led to me singing, which was a voice thing. And then I was introduced to drama in middle school. And that's where I realized drama and music can go together, and musical theater exists. So that was kind of the growth pattern of my adolescence, and then going into college. Um, Film and TV is a kind of a different animal than theater. Theater was, and I'm from Florida, so I was born in Florida, grew up in Florida, stayed in Florida until around 1999. The final 5 years I was in Florida, I was in Orlando, which is all theme parks and theaters and, you know, a lot of live entertainment. And so that's what I was working in, was in that realm. When I came to California, there wasn't there wasn't that world really for me to walk into. So I had to start working on film and TV and realize the differences and work my way into that industry. And it was a slow crawl. And I think around 2004, just when I thought I was getting momentum in that industry, is when it just fell apart. And I was like, okay, I've got to go back, and now I've got to work full time for someone else doing something I really don't want to do. But that's the time that I learned the backstage experience. I worked in management and marketing, and learned different things that helped me start those companies I had mentioned earlier. And then that led me to becoming a hungry actor again and wanting to act again. So, it's all connected. It's a path.
Tell me about, and you kind of mentioned, you kind of alluded to a lot of this already, but what else have you noticed are the differences between Ray the actor when he was younger and Ray the actor now?
Yeah, I've always been a character actor because of my size. I've always been wide, and tall, and I have a deep bass baritone voice. So even in my 20s, I was cast a lot as older roles. So I would put age makeup on and play Tevye at the age of 26, or, you know, uh, Laser Wolf, or Uncle Chris, or, it was always these older 60, 70-year-old characters from a mid 20s actor. So I think one of my friends kind of pegged it when they said, "Oh, you've aged into yourself." I'm now 53, so I can pretty much say I've been playing 50-year-olds for about 35 years. So I have a lot of experience, playing where I'm at right now. So this is the gravy. I've now reached, I've reached a point where I don't have to put on the age makeup, unless I'm playing 80. But, it's, I I think experience has something to do with it. I think being comfortable in your own skin. And I think back then I was a character actor, yes, but I was, kind of baby faced, and I didn't have the lines up here and the lines here and the grade here and the beard. And, I think I just kind of grew into myself.
Do you think, like, how did that feel? Like, I know we as, I think, actors, because it is such a visual industry, it can be tough to, because we always want to show like the best parts of ourselves. And for a lot of us, we think that means like the prettiest photo, the best looking picture and the headshot, where I think truly the industry and even like casting and stuff like that wants to see like real people playing real people. And I know me as an audience member would want that as well too, but it can be a tough mindset shift to be like, hey, I'm old now and look old. Excellent. Like, how
Right.
has that been? Like, has that been a tough kind of shift, or has that just been exciting?
I think it's I mean, it helps to know what you are, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that younger actors want to be everything. So they'll apply for the older roles, they'll apply for the younger roles, they'll apply for the 18 to look younger. It's like it makes it easier. If I'm on Actors Access or Breakdown Services and I'm looking at jobs, roles that they want self tapes or auditions for, then I'll look for 30 to 50 or 40 to 60, and it helps me concentrate on exactly what I'm going to pursue. Where I'm going to put my energy. If I'm going to type a cover letter and send off something, I'm not going to just do blanket submissions anymore for anything that's white and male. It's like I have a prism that I'm in now, and so I need to stay within my boundaries. And I think by doing that, I'm having more success because I'm spending more quality time doing the right kind of submissions. Um, but what a pet peeve, which you touched on a little bit, is real people. Reality TV came about fairly recently, and it's kind of created this environment where there's a lot more improvisation in scripted TV because of the push towards reality and being real. Um, and I think that's a good thing. But one of my pet peeves is going on a casting site for actors, and they say, we're looking for real Haitian gynecologists. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you go to HaitianGynecologist.com and not Actors Access? Because, I mean, you're a sports medicine doctor, but I mean, I would think that there are sites that people can go to find real sports medicine doctors, as opposed to going to an acting website where it seems like you're less likely to find that specific type of person. And it's a little bit of a, I don't know, I scratch my head, but I guess casting directors are casting a wide net, just trying to find the right people. And a lot of times I'll see too, they'll put, maybe you have a friend who's a Haitian gynecologist, or it's like, pass this on. It's like, well, that's pretty desperate, but
That's such a great point, and I never really thought about that, right? Like, I've done some, like medical consulting and on TV shows, right? And that's such a good point. Like, if you wanted a real Haitian gynecologist, I can find you one. But they don't, right? They want the actor who can play what they think in their mind is a Haitian gynecologist, or like in my case, like, you want a real orthopedic doctor? That's me. And they're
right,
like, no, you don't look like one.
right.
Right? They want the caricature archetype of it, which is fine, but I totally agree with you. Like, then don't say you want a real one, because we can get you one. That's such an interesting point.
I think too, because of the push from reality TV and unscripted and improvised shows now, they also will specify, well, we want a real person because we want them to be able to improvise realistically. They want the medical terms, they want the
Right.
jargon, they want, and sometimes they require licenses and proof of qualifications. And it's like, okay, well, when did acting stop being acting? I'm an actor. Let me try to act like a Haitian gynecologist for you, or you know.
And it's
So
funny because I thought, when I first entered in the industry, I was like, oh, I'm going to get auditions for all the medical roles because I can spew the medical jargon like no problem because it's my second language. But if you're a trained actor, you also can spew the medical jargon because you know how to speak acting language. You know how to read scripts, and you know how to find the people to help you make this sound natural because
you
you're a
do,
trained actor.
you do the research. You go on YouTube 5 minutes before going to set. You go on YouTube, and you learn how to climb cliffs and ride horses.
I always think of, well, yeah, and I always think of like the actors in Game of Thrones who had to learn a made-up language that doesn't exist in our world until Game of Thrones came, and they sound like they've been speaking it forever. It's like,
Yeah,
that's the same. It's because they have acting training to learn how to do that, and they drill it. They know how to do it. It's not like they're just gonna come on set and just automatically pick it up. Yeah, that's such a good point. Such a good point.
unless they answered the ad that said, "Looking for real Targaryens that ride
Yeah,
dragons.
right.
Please show certification."
Yeah, please show, like, send in a self-tape of you speaking fluent Dothraki. Yeah. Can I ask, just because I'm curious, this is a bit off topic, but kind of not, what was it like to do a degree in musical theater? Like, tell me a bit about that. Again, as somebody who didn't go to theater school,
Yeah.
I'm so curious about what that is like.
Well, it's a blending, it's and again, I told you music was my first love, so really I went through it through music. So music, I took my music classes first, which mostly was theory because I was also interested in composition, which was my minor, composition and arranging. So, you take your voice classes but then there's an intersection, where it's like voice for singing in a legit way, and then there's taking voice for acting, and inflections and tone. So that's where the crossover happens. The school I went to, Florida Atlantic University, they had just introduced musical theater program, I think maybe a year or two prior. So it was still a fledgling program. But essentially, you're splitting your time as you would with any single major. So if I was just majoring in music, I would take this many courses in music, but musical theater, they split it. So you do half in theater, half in music, and then the two come together. So, you know, I think in the early days of that program, there's a little animosity, maybe a little pride, because some people who were strictly theater kind of looked down on the people that were musical theater, and people that were strictly music kind of looked down at the people that were in musical theater. So, you know, I saw it as having the best of both worlds. I got to fulfill two things that I really enjoyed doing: find some synergy, find a way to make it work together, get some experience. The funny thing about going to school at the same time that I was working is that I actually had my first professional experience while I was going to school. So I was working at a dinner theater in Boca Raton as a professional actor doing musical theater while I was studying. So that was interesting because a lot of people just go to school first, then they start working. So um, there was a lot of on the job training essentially, and that I was bringing, the work I was doing in the workplace was benefiting my school, and then the things I was learning in school was benefiting me while I was working. So again, synergy. It was a nice confluence.
Yeah, and then so you then kind of transition into building your own production company and stuff like that. And then again, you were saying the shift back into acting. What
Yeah.
have you found that you've been bringing in, that you've been able to bring in from that more kind of backstage into now your acting career? Or has there been anything you've noticed?
Yeah, I mean, even when I was just directing and producing, I confess, I after the first couple of productions that I directed and produced with the first company, I began to realize, well, I still do like acting and performing, and I got my own company here, and there are some roles that some people might not have given me an opportunity to do that I could give myself an opportunity to do. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, a little bit of vanity theater kind of occurred, and it's one thing when it's bad, but I think we did some good productions, and I was in some of them, and so I, I'm not really apologizing for it, but I gave myself the opportunity to grow and learn and do some roles that I really wanted to do. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, playing a mountain man. I mean,
It's my favorite musical.
is it really?
Yes.
So I cast myself as Adam Pontife, and
Absolutely.
I had a great production, I think, and it to this day, I mean, some of the music from that is some of my favorite musical theater music, and I would do that role again in a heartbeat. But it's Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, some offbeat kind of musicals, Urinetown, Bat Boy, we did a whole palette of things. Some I was in, some I wasn't. Um, but I think giving myself permission to perform while I was directing and producing was an experience in and of itself because I soon realized I didn't like doing it all at the same time.
Mm.
I don't like directing a show and being in the show at the same time because I find it very distracting. Because a director listens actively to everyone all the time, a lot of active listening, and you can't turn that off. And you need to turn that off in order to focus as a performer when you're on stage. So I
Mm.
think, I think what I realized was, in rehearsal, I'm trying to be the epitome of a good actor in rehearsal, and I'm finding it hard because I'm hearing someone complain about traffic, or I can't believe they didn't have any bottled water for us tonight, or things that you just hear in the periphery, or oh, my costume doesn't fit, or my socks are missing, and so you hear all these fires that you as a director maybe need to put out, but now you're on stage also trying to perform in a rehearsal.
Mm.
So um, it pulls you in different ways. So now I like just being an actor who shows up someone else's headache if the socks are missing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about, yeah, two things. One, yeah, my first live theater experience wasn't that long ago. First one since high school, and I that was a big issue for me, was trying to get in the right headspace when also my like doctor brain of like trying to put out fires everywhere wouldn't shut off. And I had
Hmm.
to be like, it's not your job. Like, you're an actor here. You don't need to mother these other actors. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. Your doctor brain thinks you need to, but you don't need to.
Right.
My second thought is we hear that all the time in the film world about if you aren't getting the roles you want, create them for yourself, right? Make your own content. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I don't know if that exists as much in the theater world or if there's a bit more. I would, as you were describing, I think would be so much harder because of everything being live, and it's not like you can say I'm the director and now I'm going to go do a take in front of the camera and it's done and I can flip myself back into the director chair where
Hmm.
everything is so live action in theater. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I
That's a
think I
lot.
think yeah, because of just the fundamental differences, like you say, between theater
Yeah.
and film. The thing I love about theater is the repetition. But the
Mm.
thing I love about film is not the repetition. So it's like it's like you love it all. I love the difference. I love you know with film you don't have the continuity. Sometimes you film the ending first, then the middle, and then the beginning, or some hodgepodge mix of that. But with theater, it's all linear. You show up, you put your makeup on, you put your costume on, you tell a story from beginning to end, then you show up the next night and do it again and again and again and again and again for a lot less money than you do with film and TV. So I think that's again why I'm focusing right now on film and TV.
Hmm. How's that transition been? Because, yeah, like you were saying earlier, film and TV is a whole different beast, and especially I would say musical theater into TV,
Yeah.
to small
And I think
screen.
coming into it as well later in my life again, I can't really use clips from when I was 20 and 25 to promote my abilities now, right? So, and to your point, the the idea of putting yourself in roles and giving yourself opportunities. The cool way I found to do that now is to do student films. Is to go to answer the call that some USC or some of these colleges they have deals with the unions, so I can go as a SAG actor and do a film, but I can cherry pick in the ones I want to do. I mean, I can look and see, okay, they need a guy to play a psychopathic psychologist. Well, I haven't played a psychopathic psychologist. I'd like to add that to my reel, so I'll submit to that. And 2 out of 9 times, I might get um, um, an inquiry, or a request to do a self tape for that, and maybe I'll book 1 out of 5. And so I know that I'm creating, an expanded reel of characters that are true to my age now that I can build upon. And it goes back to the adage of work begets work. Because if I'm doing any project and I'm promoting it out there in the multitude of the internet, people will see, hey, he's working, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's hustling. You know, we should get him. Maybe, oh, he could play a psychopathic psychologist for us in this film coming up. So you know what I'm saying? It all kind of merges together, and that's how momentum is created.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any favorite either on set or on stage stories?
Um, I was thinking of this because I think I saw it in your email. From film and TV, I can't think of any really funny moments that I've had that like stand out right now in my mind. But I do remember when I was working at the Mark II Dinner Theater in Orlando, and I also stage managed for them. But in this particular production, I was an actor in it. Someone else was stage managing, and there was a little piano mirror room next to the stage manager's booth, which was in the back of the theater. And at intermission, some of the actors would go to this rehearsal room, and we just hang out and play some songs and sing because it was a dinner theater, and so we knew there was like a dessert thing going on at intermission. It takes about 20 minutes, and usually the stage manager would come out and they would knock on the door and say, "Hey, places for top of Act Two. We're going to be starting up." And we were in the room playing the piano, and it just started to feel like, wow, we've been in here for a long time. And we'd stop and we'd listen, and it was like utter silence. We didn't hear the characteristic sound of forks and knives hitting plates or anything. So we're like, wow, it's really quiet. So there was about 8 of us in that room, and so we walked out. Act Two had already started, and we were all in the top of Act Two, and it had started probably 5 minutes prior to us realizing it.
Oh my
So we're
god.
like racing to backstage. There was one woman on stage, like just holding down the fort, just like walking around the stage, just trying to look like she had a reason for being there, and we
Oh
just
my
kind of like
god.
filtered in and just tried to make it look natural, and just resume the show. But um, that was just one of those moments that we were just cackling about afterwards. And
Yeah.
yeah, maybe half of the audience realized something was amiss, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things. You just glory days.
Just live theater, right?
Yeah,
That's just the best and the worst of it, right? Oh
yeah.
my gosh, I love it. The unpredictability.
And the stage manager, director, and me just realizes the horror that I'm sure we put her through. She's like, "Where's her?" Because you're stuck. I mean, in that particular venue, the stage manager at that time ran the lighting board, so she's stuck in the back of the theater, just watching and helpless, and can't leave to knock on the door or tell us anything or find us. And you're just in panic mode. You're like, where's my actors? And you have nothing you
Oh
can do.
my
So
god.
yeah,
Yeah. That sounds like probably my worst nightmare, to either be the sound person or that poor actor on stage.
yeah.
Like improv. Do you have any advice for anyone who might be thinking about either starting up again into acting or starting from ground zero, starting a little bit later on in life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great book. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's called "An Actor Behaves."
Hmm.
It's kind of a take, I guess, on like an actor prepares, an actor
Yeah.
does. There's a bunch of different titles similar to that. But "An Actor Behaves," I think, was a good book for me early on because it kind of talks about work ethic and good etiquette and how that can affect your career path. A lot of people just think, oh yeah, I'll memorize a monologue and I'll walk in there and they're gonna love me, and they don't really think about how you treat the person that checks you in. How are you treating other people that are in the room? Maybe the person sitting next to you at the audition is the daughter of the director, and she's just there, and you know later on they're talking about casting and oh yeah, that guy was a real jerk, you know. So it kind of gives you the 411 on um, how different people in production communicate with one another, um, what you can do to um, not be not be too overt, you know, but um, not be the person that they remember badly, but be the person they remember in a good way, goodly. You know, so I mean, you know, a lot of people have nervous energy going into an audition, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I love this show. I can't. I'd love to be on this show. Oh, it's so. Oh, yeah. You know, it's like all that. Everything comes out. You know, as this clumsy energy. And the trick is to really be more of an active listener and be kind of pull it all back and just kind of be the person they have questions about and when you walk out, like good questions, like, oh yeah, I wonder, seems like he might be a cool guy. Maybe, give them a reason to want to bring you back into the room later on or want to work with you. And I think that's the key thing is that talent opens the door, cracks it open for you, but talent isn't what books you the job. It's the impression you leave when you're showing them your talent. It's in my case, they need to say, "Oh, well, that guy looks like he'd be cool to work with. We could have fun. Looks like he's got his crap together. He's going to show up. He's going to be prepared. He's going to be on time, and it's going to be a fun experience." Not, "Oh, that guy, he's kind of weird. He was asking for only Avian water in the waiting room, and he says he's a vegetarian that only eats piranha." So I don't know if we want to deal with that kind of weirdness. Don't be too eccentric, I guess. But if eccentricity is your thing, and that's the character thing, then go for it. But you know,
Yeah, there was this adage I remember hearing. It was happy to be here, easy to work with. To a point. I mean, don't be so happy to be there, easy to work with that, like, you know, things happen on set that are you shouldn't be happening, but like for the most part, happy to be there, easy to work with. Like,
take the temperature of the room, and just be a sponge sometimes. It's better to actively listen. Even when you're on set, I mean, I think the assistant directors, everyone you work with, I think they appreciate it when you know what they're going to say to you before they say it. And you can do that by listening what's going on around you. How many times, I'll hear a radio squawk and I'll hear, "Oh yeah, we need Ray on set." Okay. And then you hear someone relay it to someone else and someone say, "Okay, yeah, oh, but tell them to wear the red tie." Okay. And then you hear someone, but so if you're actively listening, you know all that information before the fifth person relaying the message comes up to you and says, "Oh, they need you on set and they want you to wear the red tie." So it just it makes things go faster because film and TV is all about productivity and time and money. And if I've already got the red tie on and I'm already walking out the door before they get there, you know, they remember that.
yeah, I think that's great advice. I think because yeah, I know a lot of the times, even when I've done like background work, I know we can tend to kind of get really bored really easily and kind of get nestled into our phones or whatever. But the times when I've had either upgrades or good things happen on set as a walking set piece in the background have been
Yeah.
exactly those times when I've just been there and like focused on the third AD, and then they look at me and they go, "Oh, you, oh, come," and then stuff happens. If you're just actively
Yeah.
there, that's such great
Some
advice.
people,
Such
they
great
just,
advice.
I've seen the background actors, they have their own camp chairs and they're like
Yep.
waiting to be wakened up and, "What? They need you on set. Oh, you got time for coffee before I go?" It's like, probably not getting booked again on that
Yeah.
job, maybe. But,
Yeah. Do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up?
I did work on Am I allowed to talk about it? Yeah, I think I am. I did work on a Western out in Montana about a month ago called Into the Wild Frontier. It's a second season. It's a docu-series, but it's not like a blurred reenactment kind of show like a lot of reenactment shows. It's like a talking head show where you have the historians talk and then they have these scripted live action sequences. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out. I played a villain. I played Joseph Chenard, who was a French voyageur. The voyageurs were they were trappers, but what they did was they transported the furs from where the land trappers would create the furs. Then they would put them in these bales of like 500 pounds and carry them on their backs to the canoes. And so they were essentially like the marine force of the 1800s, taking the furs across the water. And so they have a certain pride, a certain mentality. And my character was a bully, so he would pick on Americans, but he would also pick on his fellow Quebecians. And so I got to put on the French accent and be physical and ride the horse and all that stuff. I was up there for about a week, so hopefully that'll come out next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that turned out. We're talking about Seven Bride for Seven Brothers. I've been seeing a big renaissance, me personally, in westerns and doing cowboy kind of roles. I also played a villain in another short film called the the Lord of all future space and time. So it's a sci-fi western, but I played a kind of a real dirty, sour guy, but again a western. So I think that might be my new niche that I'm going to be pursuing a little bit more is getting more westerns under my belt. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Do you have any final words of wisdom?
Um, hmm, Glad we're not live. I want to think of a better wisdom.
Such a loaded, awful thing to ask at the very end.
Yeah,
No
yeah, yeah,
pressure.
yeah. Um, yes. So I think I mentioned baby steps earlier, and sometimes they accumulate into momentum, sometimes they don't. But I think you have to be persistent, and you have to do something. If this is a new thing for you that you want to pursue acting, then you need to calendar it. You need to get your iPhone and put some time in so that every day you're doing something incremental to move yourself forward in that direction. You can't just wait for it to fall in your lap. You can't just dream about it and say, "Oh, I think I probably could be an actor, but oh yeah, I don't have time to do that." Or you don't have to. You don't want to talk yourself out of something either. Oh, I'm too tall for that, or I'm too big, or I don't think they would. I don't think they'll use me, or it sounds like they only want BIPOC people. So, I don't, and so you kind of like talk yourself out of things too, and you're definitely not going to get it if you don't even audition, if you don't even send in the self tape, if you don't even submit a resume or send them a note. It's a done deal. You're definitely not getting the job. They're not going to come knocking on your door. So every day you got to do something. And I don't see it as rejection if I send something to someone and I never hear from them again. Because in my mind, I've forgotten them first. So many times I'll get a call 2 weeks from now, and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, you submitted for this film and we'd like you to come in and do a chemistry test." I'm like, "What is this for? How much does it pay? Where are you? When does it shoot? Who are you?" Because I forget the sides. I throw them away. I forget the job. I move on. Submit, move on. Submit, move on. And that's the best thing psychologically you can do for yourself too, because you don't want to look in the rearview mirror thinking, "Well, why didn't they call me yet? Is my nose too big? Oh, I really should have memorized more of that." Or you're like torturing yourself with all this. Why don't they like me? forget about it. Move on to the next thing. Be happily surprised if they do call you, and then mystified as to what they're calling you about. That's the best way I found.
I'm gonna click. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Ray, for being my guest this week. It was such a joy to talk to you. We have had such a great connection over the musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. You probably caught it during the episode. If you haven't seen the musical, definitely check it out. It's a classic. It's all about Stockholm Syndrome. It's phenomenal. A lot of delightful dancing, and one of my favorite musical theater performers of all time, Russ Tamblyn. Thank you again, Ray, for sharing your story. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!